Hey, what's up, everyone? You're currently tuned into TBD on KCSB FM 91.9 in Santa Barbara and netnetradio.com, Tijuana. Today, Lietoc and I are joined by San Diego, California based itinerant journeyman, DIY lifer, and truck stop concrete pioneer, Phil Geraldi. Geraldi has been working numerous odd jobs, curated events at Arcata's Mex and Wow, and concocted numerous noise and lo-fi visual and sonic projects. His most recent work, AM FM USA, is out now digitally on Not Not Fun. How's it going, Phil?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Oh,
Doing
fantastic.
great, man. Better now that you're on the Zoom with us, dude.
How's the weather up in your part?
It was a little rainy. Yeah, I'm in like the Ventura County area. Maddie's down in Escondido.
Nice.
Yeah, but it was a little rainy up here. The last couple days. Now it's like I don't know.
Super rainy yesterday, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Today's a
Came
little
down
better.
bad. Oof.
Yeah. It was heavy. It was like the one I feel like once a year it's like that.
Mhm.
We I try to usually take like a rain walk when I can. Love to do that, but it was really pushing it in that weather at about 9 or so AM
Yeah,
yesterday morning. Little kind of minor flooding all along the main roads. So I didn't even get into the main park I usually go into.
that's a bummer.
Yeah, I actually was working yesterday morning.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, I've been doing like I got a friend or whatever that has a pool cleaning business.
Oh,
And
nice.
Okay.
I've been doing like usually once a week I'll do like a little pool route.
Hmm.
And yesterday was my day to do that. So
Oh,
Oh,
I
see.
was I got wet. I was like for a little bit there. I was like because it's kind of like it's on my own time, so it's like if I want to sit in the car and like drink coffee and like see if it dies down, that's like totally fine. I'm not in any kind of rush whatsoever.
Mhm.
But but yeah, for a minute there, it was literally as if I had jumped in a pool. Like I was
ooh,
absolutely stopping wet.
That's
Like
brutal.
well, not my head because I had a hat, but everything else was really wet.
fantastic.
Um, so I know like before we started like chatting, or before we started recording, I should say, we were chatting a bit about like you being in like San Diego and stuff. Like, did you move there recently? How long have you been over there?
Yeah, I've been here. I was saying I grew up around these parts. Left
Hmm.
when I was pretty much freshly 18, or
Yeah.
I guess yeah, I was eight. I
Oh,
guess I was 18. Yeah. Um, and then I came back. I've been here for I think about to be 3 years.
Okay.
I think.
nice.
Yeah.
Which part of the county specifically, kind of any region
Did I? Am I in or where I?
in or yeah, part of San Diego?
I
Because
live in like near downtown, and it's called South Park, kind of Golden Hill
oh hell yeah, my
there.
cousin used to live out there in Golden Hill. The
Nice.
cat
Yeah,
is really sick.
it's a great. When I was moving back, I was like, my first choice of kind of area to go to would be like Golden Hill South Park.
Do you
So
ever stop by Luigi's over there?
yeah,
That pizza-
I went there. I went there last night. I actually don't. I don't eat pizza like a whole lot. It's not like my favorite food that I'm really wild about. But every once in a while, I will hit it up. And last night was that night we went there. So
it's Stone Cold classic place. I'd go there after cross country meets because I the CIF stuff's right over in Morley Field, so
um,
that was always great. Their
place for
cherry coke is tight.
yeah. I saw they had a little thing on the wall. It said they won one of the best restaurants in 2009. So
You got that? They got
Oh,
a little old now, but you know, yeah.
they had like a Guy Fieri segment from probably like 15, 16 years
oh,
ago.
that's
So
sick.
I saw
Yeah.
that Guy Fieri was on the wall too. Yeah, Guy Fieri actually is another Guy Fieri fun fact. He's from Ferndale, California, which is in Humboldt County where I lived for like a really long time.
Oh,
It's like
really?
a tiny little like town. It's the weirdest place to be from.
So is that like one of like I don't know, Ferndale's like, all the people there are proud, like, yeah, Guy Fieri's from here. Like,
I didn't even know that fact until like I feel like I heard it years ago and just forgot it, and then like a year or so ago, or even like 6 months ago, I had some friends that are still up there that had like pictures with him, and
oh, that's
then that's
sick.
when I like realized again. So I personally, I don't know. I don't feel like I've hung out with too many Ferndale locals, so I don't know his like mythos over there.
Hmm.
I've definitely hung out there a lot. It's like an awesome place. For sure. They have this graveyard in Ferndale, which is like incredible. It's like walking around the graveyard. It's like a '70s like horror movie. It's just
oh,
like
sick.
Really? That sounds
it's like on
sick.
a hill, And when you get to the top of the hill, you can see Ferndale, and it's like this tiny little, like, looks like this perfect little like Vermont Beetlejuice town.
Oh, that's so sick.
Mhm.
I guess like what brought you over to like Humboldt County and stuff? Like when did you move there?
I moved there right after high school. So like one of my good friends was going to college at Humboldt State, which is, I think it's it's a Cal Poly school now, I guess. But
Yeah. It turned into like one
Oh,
of
it
those
turned
like
into a Cal Poly?
yeah.
Cal Poly. So I ended
Oh,
up
man.
I ended up following him. That was like the one I didn't really have any plans to go to college. I mean, I figured I probably would, um but yeah, I wanted to, because he was going there, it seemed like my ticket out of town. So that was the one school I applied to, and I got in, and and then I just lived there for the next like 8-9 years. Um,
That's sick.
so yeah, I pretty much followed some. Actually, I mean, for a period, I went to San Francisco for about a little less than a year.
Yeah.
But then I moved back right away, and then I was there for like close to 10 years or whatever.
That's sick. So what was it like over there?
It's awesome. I mean, it took me, I mean, partly because I was young, but it took me a year or two to kind of like, you know, get into the scene, because it's not, I mean, I feel like most places are like this, but especially Humboldt, it's like, it's kind of weird at first. It takes a minute to kind of like get into it. It's not, it's very interesting, and there's parts that are very beautiful, but it's kind of like not immediately like accessible in terms of the beauty or in terms of the scene or whatever. But yeah, being there for a little bit, I started getting invited to like punk shows, like house shows, because I would have like band t-shirts or whatever.
Yeah,
So I became kind of like acquaintance friends with some of those people.
that's cool.
And then it was just like eventually pretty actually pretty fast. After a couple of years, we had a house that we started doing shows at, and
Sick.
then from then I pretty much did events at every place I lived. But yeah, there was a really healthy DIY punk scene there.
Really? That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
That's cool.
really super healthy. And then it kind of, and then also other kinds of music too. And I feel like we kind of, in the later years, in like the 2011, 12, 13 type of years, we kind of helped put it on the map more for like other kinds of music, like noise. And
Oh, cool.
I had a friend that had another house show, and he's all about like garage rock and like indie and stuff like that. So they would do a lot of stuff like that. And then one of my houses, my roommate was really into like noise music, so he would do like we would do a lot of that kind of stuff. But it would all like there was a period it was this great period from maybe like 2011 to like 13 or something, where there was like 4 or 5 active house shows, and it was just like there was a DIY calendar that we would all contribute to, and we'd have to like argue with each other, like, no, I'm already doing a show on this date. Like there were too many shows, like not enough space to go around. There was so much activity going on for a minute. So yeah, so we would pass them around. So like not, there'd be punk shows at every house, there'd be noise shows at every house, there'd be whatever, you know what I mean? It wasn't like segregated in any way.
Oh. So along kind of with those like shared billings and all these different houses, was there a strong kind of scene online that also extended into like, were there music blogs you guys were checking out? Were there Tumblrs that you were looking at? Were you guys interacting with Bandcamp kind of in that nascent form even to upload music? Like is there documentation even that still exists of that?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is no. Speaking for myself, I mean, I've always been like a follower of, I look at blogs and stuff. It's always been a way to find music, like, especially maybe not so much now. I mean, I still dabble in all those things. Like if you would ask me like, what's the best blog you were looking at for music in whatever year, I probably wouldn't even have an answer for you. But at the same time, I do have my eye on that kind of stuff. Like with books also, like it's a way that I find reading material. It's a way I find music. Like I do kind of like, I sniff it out, you know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
I feel like I can sniff it out online too. That being said, I don't have like I've never had a good like solid protocol for like where I'm going for this or that. And I've never, during that time, again, speaking for myself, and others, as far as I can remember, there wasn't any real superficial attempt of like documentation on it. You know what I mean? Like, it's mostly, I'm trying to think if there's like this something I'm like forgetting right now.
It's not
Yeah, it's mostly just in the memories of like, of the bands that like there was just the other night actually. There's this guy. So I'm sure you guys have heard of this band called No Age.
Right? Oh yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Smell classic.
Yeah, there's this guy, and then No Age played at our house like years ago, and one of the guys in the band is named Dean Spunt, and he played a show down here like two or 3 days ago.
I saw Saturday. That. Yeah, I saw the flyer.
And I was just like at that show, that was one of those shows where I don't know what I was doing. I was like occupied in the house, so like I didn't hang out with the band and like even meet them. I don't think. But I remember I recognized his name. And I saw that it was a solo. I had no idea what it was. I assumed it was some kind of like experimental thing because he runs an experimental label, which is like awesome, called Post Present Medium. That's his name.
Oh, dude, that's his. I didn't know that was him.
It's been his label. They've been around since like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
He has incredible.
Puts out a ton of good stuff. Yeah.
But yeah, he does. He's put out all of Eric Copeland's music, and Eric Copeland's one of my favorite experimental musicians.
Yeah, looking at this.
Anyway, so yeah, I saw Dean Spun. I went there to the show, blah blah, and I ended up having a really good conversation with him, and he had like these funny stories about that night that I had never heard.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, I think a lot of it just exists in like the friends we made along the way, and in like people's memory of it. You know, like there's pictures and stuff people scattered. There's this one guy I lost touch with him many years ago. His name was Billiam, and he was one of the. There was a few people that were like into taking a lot of pictures and video and stuff. And he was a huge documenter of it. He would take all these videos and put them on YouTube and had all these pictures. And then he kind of like, I don't know if he had like a mental breakdown or something, but like years later, he kind of like wiped it from the internet completely. So it only exists where other people like saved it.
Have saved it from him. Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's kind of like, I haven't talked to him. I've lost contact with him years ago. So I don't know what that is, but.
And at least when you're talking about this kind of 2011 to 2013 era, you're also that's when you were settled in Arcata or Arcata, and you were you were hosting stuff at the Mex and Wow.
Mex and Wow was our farmhouse, yeah.
Okay, that's sick.
So how, even kind of before like in high school, what were some of like the influences that at least pushed you to being like, hey, yeah, we can run shows in this farmhouse? What was stuff also in that time that was like really like getting you kind of going? Because you had your project, you had a different moniker at the time, the Mystics in Bali.
Bali, yeah. I still consider like there's been like projects that I'm kind of picking away at for a long time that I still like kind of halfway consider Mystics in Bali like albums or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like no one, I guess like because it was because Mystics in Bali was mentioned in like the not fun blurb and stuff. It's mentioned a few other places, like these tiny little spaces, like, but more or less no one like knows what Mystic in Bali is. You know what I mean? Like it's not ever a thing that, you know, I made a few tapes like over 10 years ago that I like made like 30 or 40 of. Yeah. So like, so it's not something I'm going to like bring back in that sense, but I still consider it like an active, like it is a thing. There is a headspace that I was at that I still is like, you know, it started as kind of like a, like an ambient black metal is like what I was trying to do with it.
Oh, you know interesting. I mean? Yeah.
And that was like my thing. And like, what I do now that I would consider that project is not ambient black metal, but it is still, you know, it's only not that because as I've gotten older, like all the genre and stuff, it blends, you know what I mean? Like I don't think that there's like the distinctions. I'm like, wherever I come up to a distinction of genre, that's when I want to like smooth that over. I want it to like bleed into it because that's where I think the most interesting stuff is. So that was a fun. But to answer your question, I mean, the easy answer is that it all comes, and I think a lot of people like that are into similar stuff would like share this, but it comes from like DIY punk and like crust shows and stuff like that. You know, like that was like my early introduction to like sharing spaces with all age people, sharing spaces with other people that are of all different like areas of life, queer and whatever. And that was an introduction to like threatening music. Like, you know, it's stereotypically threatening music because it's like hard and fast and heavy. Sorry, I live under an airport. So
I know that spot entirely, totally.
I'm in a shed, so it's like not that bad right now, but just letting you know. so yeah, like the music is like stereotypically threatening punk music, whatever. It's like it's become like an orthodox like joke almost because it's like it hasn't changed that much. But it is like when especially I still go to punk shows once in a while. I have a friend down here, a close friend, that is still loves like that's his number one thing is like punk music still. So he'll I'll go to shows with people sometimes and like I like to be in that world still, you know.
That's cool.
But yeah, that especially when you're really young, when you're like 13, and I used to go to the Che Cafe was like, which is still a thing.
Wow.
Hell yeah.
That was
It's still going.
it's still going. And I went there. I go there every once in a while because I have friends now that do other events there and whatever. It still looks pretty much exactly the same. There's like like the people that run it are like these young kids that look just like young punk kids, like always. So
that's cool. Yeah, I've still never been there. I want to check out the Che.
Yeah, they still do regular stuff. There's really good. I saw really good punk shows coming up, like some kind of thrash or grind kind of thing. I don't know.
When you say punk, are you talking like hardcore? Because I know they do like a lot of hardcore stuff too, right?
Yeah, like generally, I've always liked all kinds of punk music. I mean, I like all. We can get into that, you know. But I like all kinds of music. But especially when I was young, and now too, like I like. Yeah, like heavy kind of crust and grind. I like good heavy music for sure. But that doesn't mean that that's not at the expense of like softer, you know, like Buzzcocks are one of my favorite, probably top 20 bands of all time, you know.
Hell yeah.
And they're punk, obviously. So, but yeah, so that's like the beginning of like what got me into like DIY culture and all that. It's not necessarily what's sustaining me still, you know, like I got into since then, I've got into not every, but close to every genre. Like I've yet to meet a genre that I can't deep dive into and that like moves me in some significant way. Some more than others, you know, like there's the pillars of my life have probably been punk and metal, you know. When I say metal, also like 80s metal, like hair metal, like I like all of that.
Sick.
When you're saying that, I guess to go back kind of even maybe before then, some DIY stuff like because it'll play into AM FM a bit here. Music on the radio. I don't know again if you were then listening to like San Diego like 91X in the 90s or 2000s there. It's like I grew up with 91X and 94.9 in the aughts, and I've been able to look back about 2 decades now and really significantly notice how unique the kind of like San Diego like music culture as a result stem from that. Even going back further, it's like kind of with K-Rock up in LA, but the goth influence. The British, the 80s second wave British stuff is really significantly ingrained in San Diego. Even Thomas, like with your girlfriend Jess, like I noticed that in like her dad's cassettes that he passed on to you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That, but like when you talk about that metal stuff, does that like go back to that like listening on the radio or kind of growing up with like 120 minutes or other stuff?
Yeah, definitely. 949 was. I remember like late at night they would play. I mean, 91X for sure was been around since before I was born. You know, like my friends. You know, as a side note, my friend's dad, who passed away like a couple of years ago, actually was a big 91X like DJ in the late 80s.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
My parents would have heard him probably. Wow.
He's like and I mean this with like all respect, with utmost respect, he's like a C-list celebrity of San Diego. His name was Rusty Nails. Shout out to Rusty Nails.
Yeah.
Shout out Rusty Nails.
And anyway, he would do like news, like KUSI, like news spots, like little like, and Rusty Nails down at the Toys for Tots thing or another. But yeah, I remember, so 91X for sure. 949, like I remember they definitely like as I got into like mid kind of high school, they started, maybe they were doing this before and I just didn't know, but it seems like they kind of like started popping off and got like a little more into like maybe the DJs were different, but they started doing this thing like late at night where they would play like Aphex Twin and like stuff like that.
Oh really?
There was a blog called Big Sonic Chill.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was some gal that did Big Sonic Chill, I think.
You had that the title like it being DJ'd at the air conditioned lounge, which I didn't know what the hell that was, but then I would like pass that like one day because my cousin was in the San Diego art scene at the time, and I'd end up occasionally like very young age like at an art show that he was doing or something. down there in South Park or North Park before it was like really gentrified. So it was interesting to also see that development or like note those places. But I was totally just engaging with that with radio. And then you had like at 7 a.m. Tim Piles would do the one like local song a day. So there was really in like the mid aughts, it was super fascinating. The radio was at a really great point there in San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, it seemed I would agree. Yeah, it seemed like I don't listen to a lot of radio, that kind of radio now, but it seems like it hasn't gotten a whole lot better. You know what I mean? Like it seems like it's probably like that was a good. I mean, maybe that was. I'm just speculating, but maybe that was like one of the last gasps of like old world radio style. You know what I mean? Before it was completely like kind of digitized or and whatever that means for radio.
It's kind of odd to think it's like they're trying to think of like some of the stuff, but there's a really unique aspect of San Diego radio because there's like a hardcore influence, there's kind of a bit of a ska thing, there's a goth thing, and there weren't a lot of local San Diego bands that ever made it big. But something like Drive Like Jehu had that kind of regional power. Pinback is still selling out a show.
Sure. The ones that the San Diego kind of bands that did kind of make it big, you know, they're not like the hugest bands, but they did have a pretty big influence on like the genres of music, you know?
No, to me, like one of the big ones, it's like Pinback. I think exactly, that's a band really, it's not like they're doing anything major, but that run that they had in the 2000s, I do think a lot of people might be paying attention to more than it's realized.
I think that, and I'm saying this from, I've seen, I will admit that I'm not a huge Pinback fan, but also I will say that I think that their influence it's one of those bands that's like, they weren't, a lot of people haven't heard of Pinback. They're not the hugest. They have a certain ceiling on how big they are. But at the same time, I think they were, especially from that era they're at, they were very influential. Like they seeped into that kind of indie rock and kind of like underground indie culture in a pretty significant way that is still very much resonated and felt today, even more so.
They never lost their cool credits. It's to me interesting because it's like Fortress was just like a local, to me, I'm like local San Diego band, not realizing like, oh, they're on Touch and Go. Oh, there's like all this other stuff and there's all of this like genre baggage. But you have then like all of these just little nuggets on the catalog that are really great on the radio and they're very effortless.
For sure. I remember crystal clear, like it was just yesterday when Fortress was like the song that played 100 times a day, like driving to school. That was, it was just yesterday. That song was played all, and I think that's a great song. You know, like don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I hate Pinback by any means. I'm just not, they don't speak to me in some greater way. But I think they're a good band, and Fortress was a great song. It was, for how much it was played on the radio, it didn't ever like bother me. You know what I mean? Like
totally.
And that's as much as you can hope for, unless if you have like a huge radio hit. But yeah, I remember also at the same era. Postal Service. Well, I forgot what the song's called, but like that one song.
Great Heights.
Yeah, that song was played all the time. Those songs were like, they were, back and forth on each other for sure.
They really were. Oh man. Oh, and Switchfoot. We can't forget about the Trinity. Switchfoot.
Yeah, there's other ones that I just think are lesser songs. You know, like those two songs. I think, looking back now, it's like those are good songs. They, you know what I mean? They're really good.
It was wild that they popped up on the radio for what they end up being for kind of indie rock, because they're really drum machine based and they're very minimal. It's like, oh, okay, sick. Yeah. I gotta give them credit there. Yeah,
for sure.
Did you ever get into like any of like the San Diego like emo stuff at all? Like I know like Evergreen was like a big like San Diego band.
I'm like adjacent to all that stuff. Like I have lots of friends and loved ones that are really into that, and I was really into like the punk scene, so it's always I've been around that.
Yeah,
it's not really my it's like easier to talk about little sub areas of music that I'm not into, because like those are much more rare, to be honest. But yeah, like the emo 90s kind of emo thing, I've never really been super caught by that. You know, like I might in the future, I'm not sure. It's like, and I'm because partly is I've never deep dived into that, you know what I mean? but yeah, for that kind of like area of music, it's not something I know a whole lot about in
Mhm.
terms of I'm familiar with like all the names, like not all, but I'm familiar with a lot of like the names and the
Yeah.
kind of sounds and this and
Mhm.
that. And there's definitely like a very San Diego, like I make a joke sometimes if I play guitar, there's like this certain kind of chord that's like sounds like the San Diego like mid late 90s like sound. If I had a guitar now I'd play it and I swear you would like laugh. It's like sounds it's like just this the power chord where you don't play. So like here's a power chord, let's say you're holding the three notes of a power chord like the
Uh-huh.
main one. And then you don't do the middle one and you kind of have that one open and it's like the San Diego sound,
Yeah. That's funny,
But
dude.
it
Oh my
sounds it
goodness.
doesn't translate as well with like just over words, but so someone will try that and like
Yeah.
it'll,
Somebody
So
listening is going to pull up their guitar and play it and be like, yeah, that's San Diego.
does it sound like Blink 182 or like Poway or something? Is there like a tad there? It's not entirely, but a little to the side of it.
yeah, it's kind of like it sounds for me like a big sound of that like 31G, the label 31G is
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
very San Diego. Like a lot of the like the Locust was a
Mhm.
huge band that
Mm.
like that I can easily point to because came around when I mean I'm sure they started quite before this, but they came around in terms of like when I started seeing them play at like
Mhm.
Shake Cafe and stuff. When I was um about 14 or so in eighth grade or something,
Yeah.
and that was a big step into like that was a clear step into like the next level of
Mhm.
heavy music. You know what I mean? Like after like they were a stepping stone into like okay, I want something more aggressive, but like I don't necessarily I didn't then and I don't now like music that's aggressive for aggression's sake. You know
Yeah.
Mhm.
what I mean? Like it has to like the Locust had this really good thing where it was like um it was I've never really tried to articulate it. I'm not sure, but it's kind of like has this like airy kind of like breathtaking catchiness of like 80s kind of like pop music, but it's like very extreme and like has a it's cuts you like super
Mhm.
like a razor. It has like that aggression of punk music. Um so that's kind of like when I think of that, but a lot of the Locust kind of like adjacent kind of 31G type projects have that kind of very San Diego sound. There's
Yeah.
been like Holy Molar was a band that was kind of in that same um kind of sphere or whatever, and Swing Kids was like I think they're Escondido band.
Oh,
Oh
that's
yeah.
sick.
I gotta go pay. I gotta go rep them.
You should check out Swing Kids. They had like a really cool. I think I had like a 7 inch or a 10 inch or something that I had for a long time. That was pretty cool.
Oh damn.
That's
I
sick.
think on their record, I'm saying that because I think on their record, I could be totally wrong and it says like something else, but I think on the record it had like some Escondido sign on the record. That's why I say that.
Uh,
But I know there was like, when I'm sure now, I mean, Escondido is a big area. I'm sure there's a million punk bands that are like operating out of Escondido now.
there's gotta
There were
be
some
stuff
big,
going on,
there
but
were some big ones when I was in high school, like some good Escondido punk bands that would play at Shake Cafe for sure.
there was. And again, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be house shows going on here, house stuff, but there's no like essential kind of spot or cafe. Metaphor closed
Yeah.
ages ago, and then Ship in the Woods tried in 2018 to do a festival that had Bill Callahan headlining it, and Moon Diagrams, which was the drummer of Deer Hunter, also playing it.
Oh,
And it
that's
like
sick.
they did Felicita Park. That would have been. I was out at the time, and it flopped really sadly, but it looked super cool. And
Yeah,
I'm
I've never I'm only familiar with Ship in the Woods because my partner, like I was saying, has been really
Mhm.
in this kind of like DIY art scene for she's very deeply into it
Yeah.
for years.
Mhm.
So she's friends with all the Ship in the Woods people and like I met
Oh,
there's one
sick.
guy we were in Mexico City and I think he used to live there or something. It
Yeah,
sounds
they had
nuts.
a residency kind of thing that was set up.
It was someone like from that zone like moved to Mexico City and they were talking about it. I've never been there. I don't really know anything about it other than its reputation.
Yeah.
Um, but at least I've heard of it, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, even here in like San Diego proper central or whatever, it's like not the way we're talking about it it's like sounds really vibrant, and like I think that says something for any place you go. If you actually peel back some layers,
Mhm.
there's vibrance to be had anywhere.
No, I'm
San
like,
Diego itself compare, it's like not it's kind of tough. It's like a sleepy vibe kind of. There's not it just doesn't have the for lack of I've tried to describe this in many ways and like I can't, but I'm not it's not, I don't want to I have no intention of dogging on it or like putting it down. But yeah, it's missing the kind of flowing experimentalism of like a college town. It's
yeah,
missing that. And then it's also missing like the electricity or whatever of like an LA or a New York or a Portland. So it's kind of like, but it's also a pretty big place. And there's a lot of young people and there's
massive
a lot of
county.
like cool people that are trying to do interesting things. So it's kind of in this weird kind of ether that's, it's not really ever sure what it is.
Yeah, I would
Or
say that that's like similar to how like Ventura is too. You know what I mean? I feel like it's kind of just like a secondary city vibe. You know what I mean?
Are you in Ventura or are you in Santa Barbara?
I'm in Ventura.
Is that because I've been to Santa Barbara a bunch. I must have driven through Ventura like all the time, but is that where geographically is that compared to
Compared to Santa Barbara? Or
I'm just assuming Santa Barbara is like the closest place to it, right?
oh,
Or
so
am I
yeah, so I would say like Santa Barbara is probably like 20 minutes from Ventura. And
is it
then it's north. Or yeah, I guess you could say east. You're just going up the 101 north, you know what I mean? And then I would say like LA is probably like, I don't know, an hour and some change from maybe like an hour and a half from Ventura. So like,
yeah,
you
probably a
know,
little to LA then. I
yeah.
mean, actually, probably about the same from me because I think it takes me probably about an hour and a half to get to LA.
Okay, yeah, and then it's probably about the same, but it's like close enough proximity to where like LA bands will like want to play up here and like stuff like that because it's like they can make a day out of it type deal. You know what I mean? Um,
it's nicer to go up than to go down. Sometimes,
yeah,
sometimes I've imagined because that to me like plays in like San Diego being like a bit of an iffy market for some stuff.
For sure. I mean, absolutely. Um, yeah, I don't. I mean, when it's good, it's good. You can say that about anywhere, I guess.
hmm
But it's
True.
a
No,
little. It's not.
and
It's different here for sure. It's definitely not LA, even though it feels like a satellite of LA, kind of more than like.
uh,
hmm
one of the things that I was like always amazed to find out, reading some, I was reading Kyle Gann's Downtown Music was the new music. There's still really solid new music composer stuff that's going on at UCSD.
Yeah,
They,
UCSD is still um,
Mhm.
holding it down for sure. I have some close friends there. I have one really close friend in particular who's working on like a PhD there, and he's a really good musician and does a lot of like he's really involved in the DIY scene
hmm
around here. He played that Dean Spunt show actually. His name's
Oh,
Pablo.
oh,
Um,
sick.
and but yeah, he's at UCSD, so he's really tuned into like the UCSD kind of like sphere with all like there's a lot of older like professor people that are there
hmm
that are really good experimental musicians and stuff. But yeah, they have a really good history of experimental music, and they still have a lot of people in it in on the professor whatever a lecture roster there that are like they've done really interesting things in the scene and continue to for sure.
So yeah, it's funny where it's like you've got that's campus, you've got Che Cafe there, and it's funny though that it's not like there's not like a kind of stronger punk band, but at least you have those entities operating. So I've always found that once I figured that out, I thought that was just unique as hell to San Diego,
hmm
but the lack of like any real kind of like majorly accessible transportation, the sprawl, there is a lot of sprawl and density to San Diego that makes it so car necessary. It can oftentimes isolate little scenes, even
Yeah,
though
for sure.
stuff
It's
could be happening all over, especially in San Diego, kind of Maine, anywhere that's around the 163, 94 Interstate 8.
yeah, it's definitely like it's that aspect's worse than LA in the sense that in LA it's like arguably even more sprawled, but at any given pocket, it's like dense enough to be like kind of have a lushness where you can kind of like there's stuff going on in the
hmm
little area you're at. In San Diego, it's like even it's more micro, like they're micro pockets. So it's like you go to one of the more popping areas and it's still like really nothing much going on there. You know what I mean? Except for maybe the event that the one thing you're going to. You know what I mean? It's not like in LA. It's like, okay, it's hard to get maybe to Silver Lake over to whatever Sunset, West Hollywood or whatever. But once you're in those areas, there's plenty going on in those areas.
Yeah, for sure.
Here it's like a little less of that for sure. It's a little but it's also smaller, it's more accessible. You can get to areas a little faster than LA, like generally speaking. But yeah, it feels, for all intents and purposes, it's like feels more sprawled and like separate.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, I mean, let me say this, there's worse places to live in than San Diego, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For sure.
There's good people. There are there's good people here that are like doing and trying to continue to do interesting things. So that's really what's most important.
Yeah, I always thought San Diego would be a sick place to live. I always thought it would be like a more young person friendly Santa Barbara, at least. I don't know. That's how I always thought of it.
I've been to Santa Barbara like a million times, but I've never like played a show there. I've never like hung out there overnight. I've just like passed through, like, oh, we'll just chill for like a couple hours. Yeah, it's a beautiful place. It reminds me kind of like a La Jolla, San Diego, right? Like that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure there's cool areas of Santa Barbara that I don't know about. Of course, I haven't spent that much time there.
Carpinteria always is.
Yeah, it seems like San Diego, on paper, I would say, knowing as little as I do of those places, it's probably an upgrade in terms of DIY culture than those places. Maybe. I don't know.
Well, anyways, I guess where should we move into from here, Maddie?
I think we've kind of extrapolated a ton of great stuff, and we can really move into talking about music. Publish your own name, Phil. There's two pieces, or at least if I'm getting that right, there are two major works you've done that you put under your own name. 2018's Music for New Age Baby.
Yeah.
Then you've got this year's AM/FM USA. Both of which, though, are about like 6 years apart, a lifetime apart. But what, at least in kind of the late 2010s, was pushing you in a direction towards synthesizer, kind of really deep listening, ambient, and kind of sleepier music? Not that the album is sleepy, it's that it just seems like it was designed, it has a really kind of utilitarian purpose to it.
Yeah, I've always been kind of ambient music is it's one of my it makes up a big piece of the pie of my general listening. And I like engaging ambient music. I won't say that, but I stay pretty like, I'm interested in it. Like if I come across new stuff of that genre, generally, whatever, I'm interested in where what my peers are doing with it. But at the same time, I also listen to a lot of older ambient music. I use it as a very literal sense where like I can put it on and do something else. I don't have to sit there and like engage with it. So it's one of my favorite. It makes up a big piece of the pie of what I listen to. It's like I listen to a lot of different stuff for whatever I feel like listening to in any given day or week or whatever. But kind of ambient, new age, generally synthesizer. I don't really care at all if a synthesizer is in it, but a lot of that music has synthesizer, and I love synthesizers. So it's all. I would never like specifically compartmentalize. I like synthesizer music, like that's an important part to me. But because it comes with the territory, I love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it takes a big part of my my general listening is ambient music in a generalized sense. That being said, that being said, I've kind of always dabbled in that. I always like in terms of my own music, like back in the day when I used to make, tapes and more noise music and stuff, I'm always primarily personally interested in like sampling and like making sound of the environment, cassette tapes and like just, anything that's out of the environment. I like to turn that into like, but with that I'm using it as like a synthesizer. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
still kind of like often, at least in the past, still often trying to like recreate the same kind of palette. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, but I've always dabbled in like actual synthesizers and keyboards. I love those too. I've always, when I have access to them, and I've had a few throughout the years. You know, I have one now that's like boxed up under my desk, but I love always like throughout the years, kind of the DIY like trading music gear scene. You know,
Mhm.
like I think like most people that are into like a similar scene can like vouch for that. Um, it's a fun part of it. You know what I mean? Cause like, oh, you get this keyboard. Like I found this thing on Craigslist or whatever for like $100 or $50. And it's like this, and then you get to know that for a little bit of time. And then
Mhm.
you like trade that or sell that or
Oh,
give that away.
nice.
And then
Yeah.
something else comes in. Like that's always been a big part of it for sure.
Is that at least in kind of the albums that you've recorded over the years and the cassettes you've done? Have you just been consistently kind of shifting and thrifting equipment via that manner?
I mean, overall, yes, there are, I'm pretty like not, um, I'm not too jittery with like, I kind of like have an idea of what I want. And I feel like I love like the chase is better than the catch. You know
Mhm.
what
Yeah,
I mean? So
yeah.
it's like I love researching like the stuff, especially back in the day when it was like less information about it. It was almost like more fun when there was only like two websites that like barely had info about like there was like vintage. This is still a website, vintage synth something or another. Explore vintage synth explorer. That
Mhm.
was like the only website for a long time that like they had all the info about all the stuff, but it
Oh, that's
was not
sick.
that much info. It's just like, but they had a little picture
Yeah.
and like so like I love but through that I kind of like had I would form an idea of what I
Okay.
wanted, and
Yeah.
so like I never was someone who was like, and still now, especially now, but even back in the day when I was younger and stupider, I was never someone who was like really grabbing this and that. I was pretty like reserved because I kind of like would have an idea of, or at least a fantasy of what I wanted with a specific thing. So I would tend to get something that would stay with me longer or whatever. So yeah, there wasn't a big amount of going through stuff,
Mhm.
but it was
The research was there. That was it.
yeah, even now too. It's like it's kind of like I'm getting away from your question, but it's kind of like the sports page for me. Like I like to like learn about like the current like music equipment. It's kind of fun. I have like almost no interest in like actually using the stuff, but I just like to hear about like where the technology is and like what, like it's kind of getting more I'm starting to get out of that because now it's getting more exhausting with like YouTube and stuff. It's like
Yeah.
too much like it's just too dorky now, you know what I mean? Like it's just like not as, I don't want to say fun. It's still like fun. It's like overly fun. That's why it sucks now,
Oh,
it's too fun. Um but it's just not like as something blank. I don't know. Um but I got away. What was the original? What's the question about there was some point that there was a point that I like drifted far away from.
I don't even think at this point we need to get back to the original question just because there's such a good tangent to go off on regarding just thrifting gear or just kind of shifting and seeing like um with kind of where you take an album sound or if you take where you go with the different concept. But um with this tape that you've done this year, AMFM USA,
Uh,
which it's a ton of fun. It's total blast. I love the hell out of it.
yeah, I want it to be fun for sure. It's
With
fun to like. It's fun um to hear interesting music is just fun. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's when it's not like some music I listen to. It's like so interesting, but it starts drifting away from fun, and that kind of like hurts its bottom line.
um again, it really what it kind of struck me about the piece, and then going back to like the one or two interviews that you've done out there that do exist.
Hmm.
You've talked about again wanting to use AM FM transmitters at least in some work, like kind of like a decade ago. And I'm curious if like that was always a kind of concept that going with this tape you wanted to do, but also based on the profile that you had done in The Wire, you had also mentioned, and we talked about this with different music, you had gotten really into country. And that was definitely shifting compared to any of this other music that you've put out. The country influence is really, really all over this. And it's from a direction I just absolutely adore. But I'm curious, like, how long had this idea been gestating? And when you were starting to lay it down, what technology were you using? Where did you know these pieces were gonna go?
Yeah, so so funnily enough, the radio aspect was like probably one of the last kind of like pieces that went
Mhm.
with it that I wasn't planning on
Hmm.
that part of it. That ended up being a way to tie it together that started to really work.
Hmm.
Mhm.
That was like yeah, I was working with the samples and the loops and like playing my own stuff, and I was kind of like forming these pseudo little like mini kind of modern country songs or
Hmm.
whatever. I was kind of working on it for a few years, um, and it was that started from it was computer. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
having the
Mhm.
samples and having kind of like there's this one. There were like these I haven't even opened this in like so long, but there were like these. I don't even know how I got this. I think it was like something that was like I don't. I don't think it was pirated because I didn't something I didn't seek out. But I ended up having this like kind of modern country. This is pretty old now. It's probably like over 10 years old, but like a modern country like producer kind of like type of software. It wasn't software. It was like a sample collection or something. You know what I mean? It wasn't its standalone
Okay.
software. It was like for to use in like a computer sampler or something like that. But it was like that kind of palette. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah.
And it would be a bunch of pieces, like a bunch of like individual files that would be like so and so in X BPM in the key of whatever. You know what I mean? And I would like start messing with those, and and I would mess with all like break up the waveforms and kind of like add the mess with the envelopes and kind of affect them and
Hmm.
stuff and kind of put them together and make these like um yeah, these little mini like country
Collages.
songs, which is like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean, like um and so it was definitely computer, like that technology or having coming across that um inspired that. And I was just like, these are seem to be made for like actual people that are like trying to produce like a Luke Bryan like
Hmm.
country song.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I was like, is anyone doing that? Like that seems like who would actually do that? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
seems like the people that are actually on that level like would just make their own song out of like, you know what I mean? Like it was very confusing like who it was for, but I knew one thing, that like no noise people were like making using this bullshit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that's but so it's like but I don't want to make it sound like I was doing it out of like filling like
Yeah.
a void that wasn't there. Like I didn't have that kind of, I'm not going to pretend I had that kind of foresight, or
But
that I
also, there's
have
something
it
so
now.
interesting about like who is this software for?
Exactly. But yeah, it had that interesting thing where it's like, um, it's kind of a way for me to jump a few levels and start using, um, the country palette, which I love,
Mhm.
um, and just messing around with it. Yeah, I love my favorite kind of country music is like 70s country rock type
Hmm.
of music. But I love like modern country too. I love it's kind of modern country I consider is like the new, not it's not new, but it's like the modern equivalent of like the 80s AOR kind of rock music
I
where
get,
high
I
co-
get what you're getting
high
at.
cocaine, like driving down the highway, just in your face, catchy, like
Yeah.
zero nuance to it. And I
Yeah.
like that aspect. When it works, like let me say this. I go through a period maybe once or twice a year where I'll listen to country radio like heavily. What I like about it is it's like they churn it so hard. There's like multiple new radio hits every single week, and then you can if you're listening to it regularly for a few weeks, some of them only play for a couple days. They just don't catch on. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And like they go on
Yeah.
to the next one. And like most of the songs, in my opinion, are not good at all. But like every sixth song, and again that only takes a few days to get that sixth song,
Yeah.
will be amazing.
Yeah.
It'll be this beautiful, like stupid beautiful hit. um so I just like that aspect. Like that's what I liked that palette. And because I had this software which was like this confusing software. I was like, okay, this allows me to use the modern country palette, which I would never be able to just like make up on my own.
Yeah.
But it allows me to like mess with that. So I took advantage of that. And I kind of was just picking away at it for a while and like seeing where it was going. That's why like the tape, it says recorded over, I forgot what it says, but 2000 whatever to 22. Like it was a few years where I was kind of messing with it. And I thought it was really interesting. I would play it for just a couple people and they would, give me good feedback. They were like, this is like super fun to listen to and whatever. But then after a while I was like, okay, I need to like put a bow on this and like wrap it up and try to just like make a few tapes or something so I can move on with my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's been like the radio thing, kind of like, I don't really remember the perfect details of how that came in. But again, like you were mentioning, I love the radio palette is like, I always, there's been periods in my life where I can just tune into like AM static and just like, that's all I need. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's enough.
The truck ad that shows up on, I think on side B, when I heard that and I was listening to it on a lunch break, listening to the Asphalt as well, I was really, really enamored. I was like, oh, this is genius. This is hysterical to put this truck ad in here. That is great.
And that's what I love about the radio. It's like, I didn't seek out to get that. You don't know what you're going to get. You kind of you throw your hand in a big bag of just like radio of just earth stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I like that the radio, I like that it's like literally alien in the sense where it's going out to the cosmos. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like coming into that alien mindset, just dig your alien hand into the airwaves and what you get is what you get, And I kind of mess with, I have a few tools that I, pick up in like audio processor type stuff that allows you stuff that helps me find interesting ways to be able to grab audio. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
So but it's just as, but the easiest way to do it is just, simply press record in Ableton or whatever, and just let the radio go, and maybe scroll through it. Or you can emulate scrolling through by chopping it, So because the radio aspect to this album, AM FM USA, was the last thing. It's what it allowed me, because all the kind of pieces were done. I just like arranged them in a way that it worked. And then I just spent a few weeks or a few months kind of doing a lot of automation on like bringing the radio in and out, doing putting like a low pass filter on it so it sounds kind of there but it's kind of distant, like messing with stuff like that. You know what I mean? But because the radio is so dynamic, it's like any little piece, it's like basically, there's like white noise, pink noise, these kind of things. The radio, it's like its own kind of type of noise, you know what I mean? But it has like snippets of like life in it and stuff.
Yeah. No, that's again, just with some of the stuff that's come out on Not Fun. It's a label I followed sporadically because tapes go really fast and so many people come through the label. What it reminded me of was like some of the New Mexican Stargazers, a couple of the releases they had done in 2021.
Yeah, I've actually, hold on one second. I'm going to let my dog in the shed because he's whining.
Oh, all good. Look, it says office. That's so cool. There's a drum. Oh, that's so cute.
We got the studio.
All right. He didn't even come in now.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So actually, funnily enough, there was periods when I was in late high school, like just out of high school. I was Not Fun was like this incredible label. Like I feel like the type of like noise music, which I've never heard a good name for it. I personally decided to call it mystic noise music. It's like with this time of like 2007 to like, I'm just throwing these dates out. Like obviously this is an arbitrary thing. Like 2007 to like 2012, there was it was one of the most exciting, amazing times for noise music. It was like James Ferraro and Skaters and like Not Fun was like a huge, there was another label called Old English Spelling Bee, which was
there's a couple of releases that I'll talk about.
Old English Spelling Bee has some incredible ones, and they did some Ferraro stuff too. But yeah, Not Fun was like was there for that, was so there for that. They were like arguably one of the best ones for that. And so it was a really important label to me. And then, yeah, like you were saying, I've kind of been very sporadic over the last 10 years, but every once in a while I'll like go on like their Bandcamp or something. And like any new release that I listen to is like amazing. Like he has a Britt Brown, the curator of it, has a consistency of like what he brings in, which is very consistent and very strong. That's why when I reached out to him with this tape, I was like very clear of like, hey, you're the first person I'm reaching out to with this. I don't think it's like fits really the palette, but I think it fits like the ethos. So it's tell me what you think of it, you know? Luckily he was into it. But that New Mexican, what is it? New Mexican Stargazers?
Stargazers, yeah.
That's actually one that I did listen to, which is, yeah, great. That was great. And that's a similar, like they had a similar thing, like a road kind of vibe to it.
Yeah.
A road theme to it. Yeah, that was a really good one for sure.
And again, now bringing that era, because we've talked to people in Chicago who talk about their kind of Halcyon 2007 to 12 era before Orange Milk and Hasu Mountain, where it's like Deception Island and the stuff that Emeralds are tied to doing at that time, and like Beer on the Rug. But you bring it like Old English Spelling Bee, which had put out they put out the Julian Lynch album. I really love those that they've done. But like again, it plays into yours, and then like Chill Out Here, that kind of missing link with the James Ferraro, The Last Action Hero. I had not heard that one until last year when it was because a lot of these releases are now getting kind of retroactively tagged in unique ways, and Ambient Americana is a label that came up for Ferraro's release there. It's come up for Steve Roach's stuff, for KLF, for like Apollo.
Yeah, so that James, that era and his label that he did with like Spencer Clark, I'm not sure, I don't know the details of this, but they had a label called New Age Tapes that they did their own stuff on, and like Pacific Breeze, it's some kind of like Pacific City, I don't know, some kind of thing. They had these different little labels that I think they just did their own stuff on. But that kind of world that they built was like that's one of my favorite things ever. I think it will be, as the years go on, I think that the Spencer Clark, James Ferraro skaters kind of world will be more and more important in like the actual like pillars of music. I think they did really important work in those times. It was just like so unique and interesting. So yeah, that was like, I can easily point to that as like very, very inspirational. And also, you know, it goes in a similar vibe with like early Ariel Pink when I found all that. Basically a mixture of like that had that kind of like threatening, intimidating, like kind of like dirty punk energy where it was just like very unknown, but it was like playing with like transcendent kind of sounds, you know what I mean? Which was like, I still get like even just saying that, like that's very exciting to me.
Like another like artist that are on the fringe that was on Not Fun and did one of my favorites for Mexican Summer, like Peaking Lights. Yeah, that time in 2011. That's a really great dub group that's got a weird mysticism to it and a lot of like mystery and edge. Love those albums from the start of the decade there. Another like great kind of off tangent, but yeah, that's a great sound to pull on, and that's what I loved about this release compared to other kinds of like pedal steel or Americana or country or ambient stuff at the moment. It didn't have the kind of bleeding heart sincerity naturalism that a lot of these releases have, and it's like it's awesome they do it, but there are at a certain point you got to switch it up ever so slightly. You got to find a new direction or a new intro, and this is what I love about this.
And part of the reason that I mean, it's a explanation as old as time, you know. Like part of the reason I like was working with this kind of sound palette and this album and or whatever is because there was something I wanted that I couldn't find. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I follow. There's a lot of people going into the country aspect. There's not a lot, but there's a handful of people that are doing like kind of that are on the vanguard or whatever of experimental pedal steel, ambient country type of stuff.
Yeah.
And I can't, there's none of them that I would say capital D dislike.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of them are interesting, but it's not, none of it's really there for me of like what I want from it. You know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
So it's like when I got, and to be clear, a lot of the majority of the pedal steel on this album, AMFM USA, is not me playing. A lot of it, I'm playing over it. I'm augmenting it. You know what I mean? But it's not. It's mostly like the skeleton of it is sample basically. You know, for lack of without getting into the detail of it. But it's like, that being said, I got a pedal steel. I purchased one around, a few years ago. And that was because I want to like, not only just as a personal goal, I would love to be able to like shred country music. Like I would love to just play in a country cover band. Like I would love to do that,
That'd be sick.
But more importantly, like it was 40% that and 60%. I want to be able to like use this in an experimental way that other people are kind of around.
Yeah.
They're messing with it. Yeah. I don't want to mention names, like not in any kind of good or bad way, but there's people that are messing with experimental pedals, especially now. It's like every month there's like more of them. It's becoming, I feel like in the next couple of years, it will be a much more heard sound in like pop music and stuff, because a lot more young people are playing it. But it wasn't, wasn't what I wanted from it. Like I wanted something else. So I was like, I guess I'll just have to like do it. You know what I mean? Like not in a begrudging way, like in a fun way. It sounded awesome and fun. You know what I mean? It sucks to learn a new thing. Like it's a hard thing to play, but yeah, that's why I kind of like to fill a gap,
Yeah. No, and this is also what makes it, because I've watched in real time and I've talked with people online about some of this music. And it's the aspect that I'm interested by is the fans of this stuff, like on Rate Your Music or whatever, canon building and really making a list of stuff pre-2010s that they're trying to find and kind of retroactively like fit into that. And I think that's interesting, just to see like who was trying to fit these own gaps in their sound. Like you get those releases like Apollo or Chill Out or the late 90s Steve Roach stuff, and they're all doing their own thing. James Ferraro as well. And even the releases that I love, it's like the Power Roland stuff.
Yeah.
Which they're not really doing pedal steel, but they're in a really interesting kind of like sound there.
What is that?
The Power Roland duo. And
Jen.
they sometimes pair with the drummer from Cloud Nothings,
Yeah.
Jason Gershitz.
I remember Cloud Nothings. I'm not familiar with the other. Wait, what is it?
Jen Powers and Matt Rowland. Yeah.
Rowland.
Oh, it's the names.
Yeah. And they're co-running Astral Editions right now, and they curate that label. And it's like the Mute Duo release on that, or like the Show's release. Those to me fit into this larger conversation, but also not pedal steel albums. They're just really great, blissed out kind of natural stuff.
I'm gonna Discogs that later and dive into that for sure.
Yeah, do it.
Even it was like last year, because I was kind of edging it with like Maddie Barbier, CalArts kind of associate professor. And they're doing Just Intonation.
Yeah, I love Just Intonation stuff.
Yeah, with a trombone. And they were playing, and they were kind of doing deep listening stuff, but that to me totally was getting at like how expansive the sound can be, really what could be pulled from it. But pulling again from the radio and pulling from all of that stuff, I just think is so cool.
And that leads me into a really interesting point that makes me think of, is that it's like a pedal steel is basically my goal is to, and it's going to take time to get here because I'm way too scared to like get out of the standard country pedal steel tuning of a 10-string guitar. It was an E9. It's like an open E. You know what I mean? Okay. So it's like it's going to take me a minute before I feel comfortable like creating my own tuning for it. But once I can get there, it's going to be incredible. You know what I mean? Like, that's my ultimate goal, to be able to like mess with different tunings, which is it's challenging. It's more or less unheard of in the pedal steel world, partly because 99% of pedal steel people are playing traditional country music. And the other 1% are probably doing their own tunings and doing whatever. But like most of the experimental pedal steel is like really avant-garde. You know what I mean? Like where it's like not like my own, maybe, and this is like probably a lofty goal, but my vision is like I want to play traditional pop country music, but with like I want to like tune a guitar completely different. I want the guitar to be like completely
Yeah.
different. And like to go back to the just intonation. What's cool about the pedal steel? It's like it's very like I said, when it's tuned to standard E9 or whatever, it's like the opposite of just intonation in the sense where it's like a very rigid type of like chromatic type of tuning. But the way that it is, it's like a fretless bass where it's like you have all the in between space. You know what I mean? And like that's what I'm interested in, and that's why I'm also like I have to stop myself and slow down because it's like I have a tendency to like try a bunch of new things. I really want a fretless bass, basically. Like I almost bought one in LA. Like the guy in LA was like, "Oh, I sold it to someone else." I was like, I'm still sad about it. But after playing pedal steel, it's like I want a fretless bass. Like I just like to have that liquidy kind of feel is like, and a radio is. I never thought about this till you were like talking about just intonation, everything you were just saying. But it's like a radio is kind of like that. A radio is a fretless instrument. You know what I mean?
That's a brilliant thought.
So that's just
That's
where
awesome,
I'm at
actually.
right now. And it makes sense when I look back, especially what we were talking about when I look back at James Ferraro and whatever. Like, this is very fretless music. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and like even noise music in general is very fretless music. You know,
for sure.
And like,
this is great.
And I'm so much of my life is like fretted music. Like I love pop music. I love, I think some of the most. We can get into that. Whatever the best. Amazing people. There's amazing people right now making music, and a lot of it is very fretted type of music. You know, what I mean? Like I'm not like. If anything, if you had a gun to my head and said, "What is going to bring the future?" It's the frets stay. You know what I mean? Like 100%. There's something so interested in like that liquidy kind of like just intonation is like the flag of like that kind of like what's beyond the fret. You know what I mean?
Yes. No, that's great.
That was sick. Yeah, that was awesome.
We got it. No, I got to give a shout out yet for just intonation. Also for fretless bass because I love Japan. Killer band that is a sound entirely based around fretless bass.
Oh, are they really?
Those last two Japan albums kick extra ass, and that dude is on one of my favorite ECM albums.
What's the Japan bassist name? He has he has a solo album, which I have his solo album, and it's amazing. I just don't remember his name. I haven't heard it in a minute. He also did an album with the bassist did an album with another name I'm forgetting. The guy from Bauhaus, like the big guy.
Oh, wait, really?
Is it Mick Karn? Is it Mick Karn? Is it this album?
That's exactly.
Yeah, Mick Karn. Yeah,
that is probably the one I have. I don't remember what the cover looks like, but yeah, he has an album with who's the Bauhaus guy? Like he's like the most popular, like the famous name. Like
not Peter Murphy. Is it Peter Murphy?
I think it's Peter Murphy. Yeah, they have a band called Dallas Car, and maybe it's like French and it's like Dali Car, and I'm not. It's DALIS. I'm not sure, but that's their band. They have like I think probably just the one album. It's awesome. It's a great album. Check it out on Discogs.
There's that one. I'm thinking of because you bringing up fretless bass made me think of that, and then Mudvayne with LD50, which again, great new metal album, and it's all based around fretless bass.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm familiar with Mudvayne, but I'm not familiar with that album. My favorite fretless bass, which I like, in terms of what I'm most exposed to, is what's the guy's name? Dell. His name's Dell something. He's played with Kate Bush throughout her whole career. I think he was her partner for a while, but he's pretty much, I think, her bassist from pretty much all of her albums. His name is Dell.
Del Palmer.
Del Palmer, that's what it is.
He just passed.
And like, he just passed, huh? I didn't know that. Yeah, he was probably not too old either.
Only about 71 or so.
But yeah, he's the sound. I mean, Kate Bush is one of my absolute most in my DNA of like my inspirational artists for sure, and that fretless bass in her music is like a huge part of her music. It really is.
That's crazy. You guys can like tell the difference between fretless bass and just like a normal bass and like pop music and stuff.
Like I guarantee you can tell. Like it's the kind of thing where it's like you think you can't tell, but with like a 20-second like kind of introduction to it, it's pretty apparent.
Oh, that's sick.
I started playing. I have a keyboard that has like a fretless bass preset. Like I got it kind of recently. It's like has the kind of late '90s kind of like. It's a cool like what do they call it? Like a rompler. You know what I mean? Like cool fretless. I learned because it has a pitch wheel on it, so you can kind of like emulate a fretless bass.
Oh,
And
that's sick. Yeah.
It's on YouTube. I made a song for my friend's Christmas compilation.
Yeah.
And I kind of pretended fretless bass in it. I think it sounds great. Like it sounds. I don't know if it would pass for an actual fretless bass, but it sounds pretty spot on to me, you know? So, but yeah, I'm going to get sometime. I'm waiting to get a headless fretless. That's what I want. I want
headless fretless bass?
Yeah, I want the headless fret. Wow. My friend that I played in a band with in Portland has a fretless bass, and I just love them. Like they're so small and compact, and like just I love small things that don't take. I have so much shit. I love things that don't take up space.
Yeah.
So, and I just like the feel of them. So yeah, my kind of like semi goal is to get a headless fretless. I had one in LA that was a great deal, and the guy sold it off before I got to it. So
gosh darn guy.
Find another one for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a local punk band up here in Ventura that would use a fretless bass.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was thinking like it's so right. It's one of those things where it's like if I saw a punk band with a fretless bass, even before they started playing, I would say, hats off to you, sir or ma'am. But it has sonically like so much potential. It's very interesting. I mean, you play it as a regular bass, but it's just like has that in between. You know what I mean? A fret is like it's on rails. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I had a friend that was. We were actually talking about fretless bass like last week with one of my friends, and he was kind of just explaining like, yeah, you get like all of like the microtones and everything like with no frets and stuff. It's sick. I always thought that you needed frets to be able to play like a stringed instrument or something like that. But
yeah, kind of. That's why like the pitch wheel on a keyboard can emulate it really well, because it's like every second or third note you kind of like bend in very slightly. That sounds kind of like hard. It's actually like it's not like what I'm describing isn't like I'm not a good keyboard player. It's really easy to do. Like anyone could do it. But that's why it sounds just like a fretless, because that sound of a fretless is, even if you're kind of playing spot on, like I don't think I'm not sure. I haven't really had a conversation with the fretless basses, so I'm kind of like just talking out of my ass here. But it's like I don't think that they're basically playing a bass in a normal way, but because you don't have those frets, you're kind of like slightly sliding into the notes, and it has that kind of like that sound, the classic sound of a fretless bass on a record, which is like kind of like that, a little bit of a drifty,
little looser, yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is similar to a pedal steel. It's a drifty instrument, or it can be. It's usually played traditionally very precise, but it can have a drift. I've been experimenting. It's cool when you don't know how to play something that well. It kind of like, but for me, I have this good on a good day, it's like a great thing. Lack of technical skill, but like heavy vision.
Yeah.
Like it forces me to like play it in a way that sounds good, and that can't be the regular way to play it, unfortunately, because I'm not good enough to do it that way. So I have to do it my own way, and that like is not only really good practice in any sense, just as like a memory of an instrument, but it also sometimes can like find new avenues that like, oh, this sounds actually like I'm enjoying this, and it doesn't sound like anything else. It sounds like just like it's its own instrument.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It sounds completely different.
Oh yeah.
That's sick. Well, I don't know. Does that bring us towards the end of our questions, Maddie?
I think that brings us towards kind of our lightning round wrap up, because we should get some country recs. We should also, at least based on one interview, if you have any ECM or composer recs, also absolutely would adore those. But modern country singles or artists right now, since you're the biggest experimental musician right now watching those charts, Phil, we got to take your word heavy here.
I mean, for the modern country, it's like I was saying, I go through periods like a couple times a year where I listen to the radio with a lot, and I haven't had one of those periods in like a minute. I'm like really due for it. So like modern country, I haven't been listening to it in like 6 months probably. There was one song, you know what, I can this will make me sound cool because I'll have something I can fire off. But there was a song, now years ago. I was in Portland, and so this was probably 2018 or 19. There was a song called Undone by Joe Nichols. I remember this was on the radio for like, it only lasted for like a couple of days. Like, I guess the people hated it or something.
Oh,
Like some stupid, it's like just one of those dumb, like modern country's like vaudeville. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's so in your face, and it's just corny by nature, but it's like can be so powerful. Anyway, there's a song called Undone by Joe Nichols. I'm sure it has like 100 million views on YouTube, but it was like not on the radio for that long. And I remember it as like this really good, just vaporwave ready kind of like,
oh, I found it.
That's sick.
Yeah.
there. Yeah, I just always remember that one as like, I loved hearing that for like the day that it was on the radio.
That was about 7 years ago. 2.2 million views.
It's actually pretty low for that would be like a failure for like Nashville modern standards.
Compared to, because he's got some videos that looks like they were uploaded 2009, if not earlier. Because Joe Nichols, Tequila Makes Her Clothes Fall Off, 41 million. What's a Guy Gotta Do? 2.7 million.
Okay.
So Tequila, he's doing good.
It's like a moderate success, I guess.
I do, that point you bring up, though, about it being really powerful. I was at a wedding a couple months back, and I was talking to a buddy of mine who lives up in the Bay Area, and he got in to modern Nashville country for all of these reasons that you're emphasizing here. Like, this is vaudeville. It's churning out a product. And if you are into the product, you are getting rewarded with consistent, up-to-the-date new things coming through and new random stories. Just there's something about that world of songwriting that is super appealing for people.
Yeah,
I get it.
I mean, I could talk about that. That's a whole nother thing. It's like, it's very narrative forward in this like extreme sense. It's like, it's kind of like fighting against the chaos of life with just pure narrative, and it comes across as like there's no metaphor in it. You know what I mean? Like, it's at least modern country. It's like this and then this and then this, and then this. You know what I mean? And then like over and over again. Like, so it's like that's why it's kind of I think it's understandably hated in like the kind of serious art sense. Understandably, I think that it's by nature a product, but within that sphere, it's still people making music. You know what I mean? And like, it's the same reason people hated AOR and like 80s metal and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get why they hate it. I get why I'm not confused to why people think it's corny, but at the same time, like, if you can just let that go and like, take it in for what it is or something, that sounds very prescriptive and stupid, but if it just, for what it is, it can be just driving down the highway like a shot of cocaine to your brain type of stuff. What else do you need? Like an occasional bit of that is like worth its weight in gold,
And again, there's another great critic I read. It was Chuck Eddy, and he has a book called Rock and Roll Always Forgets, and that covers about 30 years of his Village Voice writings and stuff. And the last section, as he's like becoming middle age in the 2000s, it's just country. That's what, and he's like, and I really like these Ted Nugent songs. And he just gets heavy in, and he's understanding and appreciating them for the reasons that he appreciated like AOR in the 80s, or wrote a book about heavy metal that doesn't have a lot of heavy metal in it. That production is super, super interesting because no one else is really doing it like that. And maybe because I don't follow it close enough, but I hear from friends and I get kind of whispers. I imagine regional Mexican music is gonna merge with country.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation too. Like, absolutely. Yeah, we listen to my partner is in that world and is Mexican, and she loves that music, and like, so we listen to a lot of that here, and in San Diego, I got a lot of friends that are coming from that background, and like, there's a lot of, I'm pretty, I can't necessarily speak on details of it. I won't, but I have a lot of that in my life, and there's a very interesting overlap with, especially like the vaudevillian nature of like the kind of rural music in general,
Yeah.
I'm sure that can be said about other countries too. I'm sure there's Polish kind of like country music that I'm not exposed to, so I can't speak on it, but I mean, humans are all kind of the same, so it's like wherever you're at, there's a certain overlap, especially with art and music, which is going to be apparent, you know. Um, but before I know we're gonna go in a second, but I also before the I don't want to just throw out Joe Nichols. Like, there's
Shout
also
out anything else, any other albums of the year,
I reckon
regardless of country or not. I'd love to
maybe someone
hear.
will listen to this that doesn't listen to a lot of country music, and like I would say like International Submarine Band, which is Graham Parsons' first. It was his first at least like commercial type of band.
Yeah.
I don't. He had some
Sick.
stuff, but that's a great introduction to like this. I mean, their stuff was from the late '60s. It started probably '69 or so, but that's a great introduction to like my favorite kind of like early '70s country music. International Submarine Band.
Cool.
The Byrds, Sweetheart of the Rodeo. That was one of the first first considered one of the first country rock albums. It's excellent.
Sick.
Really good. I love any kind of like a lot of the classic country stars from like the like the classic Dolly Parton, Waylon Jennings. Those 10 people go on Discogs, look at what they did. I mean, all their stuff is good. You can't go wrong. Pick an album and enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like in the '80s when they were kind of like tired and like coked out and kind of like middle aged. A lot of those albums, that's considered the worst of their career for general good reason. But there's like amazing gems in that era. Like amazing gems in that era. I love finding like good '70s and '60s stars and then looking what they did in the '80s and like deep diving those albums can be like.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And one more album which is really good that's kind of recent is it's called Cause. I believe I could be messing the title up, but I think it's called Cosmic American. It came out on Numero Group.
Oh,
sick.
And it's like a compilation of some like deep cut kind of like country rock kind of psychedelic country stuff.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff on this playlist.
I love that compilation. It's Numero Group they're one of the best labels. They're incredible. But that compilation, Cosmic American, is excellent. I'm
gonna rent that. Thank you.
Most of the stuff on it I had never heard of, even the band, and I like subsequently like soul seeked their music. Like a few of them, I to this day like you only can, even on Discogs you can't even buy them. Like they're like so rare.
Totally.
But half of them are so I kind of like found through soul seeking stuff, and like it's just great finds. Like that's it. I would say the one thing, if people that aren't into, if someone's listening that's not really into country but is just into like cool stuff, Cosmic American, Numero Group, great compilation, excellent introduction to just like dusty kind of like country weird music.
Yes.
I was like really heavy into like the Numero like country compilations for a while. Yeah, super good.
It's a great label.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super excited to get into, because I will track that down and rent it, and I will have that in my car for weeks. So. Any other 2023 albums of the year, though? Not even in country or whatnot.
I'm glad.
I gotta start asking people this.
I think that so probably I didn't hear this until the end of December.
That's what I'm saying.
By far the best album I heard all year, and I think is one of the best albums that's ever been made, is Sun Tub by ML Book.
I still have to hear it. I need to hear this badly.
By ML Book?
I know why I need to hear this. Okay.
Book is spelled, she's from Denmark, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Denmark.
She had a 2020 album that was shelved from 2019, and then there's this one.
Yeah. I went back and listened after this one. I listened to her other. She has as far as I saw on Bandcamp, she had a prior album and an EP. I listened to both of those, and both of those kind of like if they were the first thing I heard, I would be very intrigued. Like they kind of like dip a finger in like the ecstasy of like the netherworld. But Sun Tub, like you wake up and you're already 2 miles deep into it. It's like it is an incredible piece of it. Absolutely changes the bar for music and art. Like she's at the absolute vanguard of modern music, and it inspires my own music and my own art in an incredibly deep way. Like I'm very inspired by that. Also, I would say in a similar kind of zone, someone like Caroline Polachek is like, I think on the
I really enjoyed.
On the
I've got
vanguard
some.
of like modern experiment. Like she's in a more of a pop. I mean, ML Book's kind of pop too, but
Yeah.
genre. Like these people are like on the vanguard of experimental music. Like they are pushing it forward.
The Polacek is a lot of fun. I haven't heard the book because I rent a lot of CDs through the library or library systems here in San Diego because you can do that still and you can just find stuff. But I got Caroline at the library that I work at, and we've got a nurse that I'm happy we got. But it's a really tight album. Some of the Caroline tracks are better than others. I mean, she let at least 3 or 4 of those cuts exist for like 2 years almost. But Billions to me is like that's pitch perfect as it gets. Welcome to My Island's a perfect intro, and then in the middle you have all the kind of Enya stuff that she does.
Yeah,
It was fun. Total
yeah,
blast.
it's she's just pushing it forward for sure. But yeah, Sun Tub by ML Book is like I think I really think it's easily in my top 20 albums I've ever heard.
That's sick.
I don't mean, and I'm I speak for myself obviously, like, but I feel like I speak with
I'm ready.
some kind of confidence in terms of like when I think of the 20 best albums, like it's a lot. I'm speaking from all genres. Like I'm trying to be as objective as I can in terms of like what has been put into the world. And we only have about 100 years or so to choose from in terms of like the modern album. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not like I have to. If I'm talking about the best music ever made, that's whatever. That's impossible. You know what I mean? But in terms of like the best kind of modern era records, it's one of the best. It's incredible. It's an incredible work, and yeah, listen to it, stick with it. It kind of like it starts very strong, but it doesn't really like. For me personally, I was immediately intrigued, but I wasn't. I was convinced relatively quickly, but it took about 10-15 minutes, And I'm not saying it's not perfect, like it's so close to being perfect that I have like a bunch of critiques for it, where it's like I feel like there could be a couple minutes there could be a few minutes that could be shaved off it because they're incredible minutes, but the rest of it's so perfect that like you know what I mean. It could have been you could have put it on something else.
Yeah.
I think it's listen to Sun Tub. I have so much good things to say about it.
I'm excited to dive into Sun Tub now, dude.
I gotta do it, especially now. I've heard of the hypnagogic kind of play to it and that excitement. There's a real excitement to it of like a different era of the internet. So
I missed it. I vaguely remember seeing the cover on Pitchfork. Yeah. So like when I saw the album cover, I was like, it looked familiar, but I didn't really. I missed it. I didn't listen to it, and then like
they made the Gorilla versus Bear list. That was where I also saw it.
Yeah, it was it was reviewed. I'm sure pretty widely when it was released. But yeah, I had a friend on Instagram, a good friend of mine that I respect his music. He like had it in one of it, in his story, like his song. It was just like 5 seconds of it. It just sounded like new age music. It wasn't necessarily like I don't even think I heard any voice in it. But I was like, oh, that sounds like really cool. I'm gonna listen to that when I'm driving today to work. And I started listening to it. And I was about 2 or 3 songs into it. It's kind of a long album. It's like 50 minutes or so. I was about 2 or 3 songs into it, and I was like, I actually have to turn this off and like listen to this with headphones later, which it's very rare for me. I almost never do that.
Yeah.
I was like, I need to listen to this when I'm walking the dog later because this is actually like really incredible music. So I kind of stopped it and like listened to it with headphones. And then I did that. And then 2 days later, I did it all over again, which I like never done once in my life. Like I was so taken.
That's sick.
The big late last like heard it like end of December putting together the tabs out list was Tujiko no Riko's from last year. I don't know, this one I still think actually went really under the radar, and I kept it on my list for ages because I want to still get the tape of it. And I got my library to buy this album, which is a huge
What is the album?
The album is called Crepuscle 1 and 2. I'm gonna put it right here.
Who is it, Maddie?
Right here.
Oh, okay.
This came out on Edition Mago right at the start of last year.
I'll check that out.
And killer ambient, but with a huge pop edge. Some really long, like episode long pieces, some kind of short ambient pop stuff, but it all comes together. Every I really want to try to get a cassette of this if ever the time comes.
I'll check that out later.
That's all. I like that. Good Rex all around. That should bring us to.
That flew by. We've been talking for a long time. Wait,
I know. We've been chatting for like an hour and a half or something. It doesn't feel like it all.
I mean, this is my whole night, so tell me when you guys need to leave.
Nah, dude, we're chilling. We're vibing right now. But
Thomas, you got any other Rex before we take us to the closer?
I'm trying to think of like, I don't know, dude. I'm never good at like naming off albums off the top of my head, but like Pure Link was really good, obviously. That's like what I've been vibing to a lot recently, and that's from
Did
like,
you get the Pure Link vinyl, Thomas?
I haven't got it, dude, just because I haven't been listening to vinyl as much. If they had like a CD, then I would like cop the CD or something. You know what I mean?
I think you just got to cop it because they're never going to do it again.
Yeah, that's true. I need to get my turntable repaired, and I need some new speakers. But
Pure Link on Pure Oil with that one that they did last year.
On Peak Oil, yeah.
Oil, yeah.
Yeah, do you know that one, Phil? Pure Link?
What's that?
Do you know Pure Link, that album or that band?
What's the album you guys are talking about? I'm familiar, but I'm not like, I don't.
Signs is the name of it.
It's like a ambient like techno or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right, it's super sick.
Signs
by Pure Link.
Yeah, I know that. I'm kind of familiar, but not. I'm not familiar with any like albums.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good kind of, for lack of a better term, ambient artist that I was listening to a few months ago is Percival Pembroke.
Ooh, that's a new one.
Who is it?
He has a bunch, not a bunch, but he has a good amount of albums. I don't know if they came out. They might just be digital. I'm not really sure. Percival, like Percival, Pembroke, Pembroke.
Oh yeah, I see it right here. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really like, at first you kind of listen. It sounds kind of like just good quality, kind of standard type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But listening to the whole albums, I was like, this is really a cut above like the genre. This is really good stuff. I really
that's sick.
Oh wow.
Been recommending.
There's got some really fun covers here.
I got that Arpeggiator World, the first one I heard. It was because the cover looked so cool. It was on YouTube from some uploader that I respected, and it looked so cool. I listened to it one day, and I was like, "This is above average quality for sure." Like,
I feel that. Oh man, no, he's made a world for this stuff. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, I guess that kind of brings us towards the end here. I know you have a show coming up on March 1st, is it? Or
yeah, 1st or 2nd.
Yeah,
Audrey at the 61st Street House or something. Yeah, I've only been there once.
I got to show up there. I will try to make it. So
yeah, Maddie, you got to go. And if there's any listeners down in the
DM me, you live really close. We can hang out. So
yeah,
that'd be sick.
I'll get off. I'll stop by Luigi's.
We'll go. I live really close to Luigi, so
Fuck yeah, that's sweet.
That'd be sick.
Where can we keep up with all things Phil Geraldi? And will there be tapes at some point again, you think?
Yeah, so I'm still I love that people seem to be resonating with the AM/FM USA and been enjoying it, and it's gotten great reception, and it's still getting reception, which is awesome. So in terms of I don't really have too much online presence, to be honest, or like anything in that sense. So I'm figuring that out, Yeah. I want to that's why I said yes to the show. I want to kind of like get into that world and get more in play, It's like I said, it's a different thing, playing like a noise show, a solo show or whatever. Mm-hmm. It flexes a different muscle that you don't normally get to work out,
Totally.
Dude, start getting involved more. There's a cool circuit. There's a lot of people that I feel like you would play really well with.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, dude, we got you on gigs up here too. If you want to come up north, we got you on shows.
Yeah, and I think, and like of course, because of this album has gotten some good reception. I feel like it's a good excuse and good time to get into the scene and play some shows, you know?
Exactly, dude.
So I'm gonna start with the 61st Street and see where it goes. Like I said, I used to play a lot of solo shows, but I don't want to like I don't want to feel like a rote. You know what I mean? It's like a solo show is a hard thing. I'm not a virtuoso instrumentalist, so it's like if I could just zone out on like an instrument, then I could just do that. But I can't, so I have to like form, like, for lack of a better term, like a noise show, like interactive experience type of thing, and like that's
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I did that for a while, and I was kind of got bored with it. So we'll see where it goes. I'm glad people are loving this album, and I want to like bring that into some kind of live experience. You know what I mean? And see where the next. I have a big because of the attention or whatever, or the positive feedback I've gotten on it. I want to this year. I've been working on other stuff, and I want to expand it to it. And the next thing, it's not going to what I'm working on is not going to really be too much at all like AM/FM USA, but it's going to be the same world. It's going to be different, and it's going to be really good, hopefully. So.
Sick, dude. Well, I'm excited to see where that's going to take you. Hopefully your gig goes well. Again, that's March 1st at the 61st House in San Diego, promoted by our friends at Make Believe DIY.
Look at Make Believe DIY on Instagram, and then my Instagram is Shock Tropics. DM me for the address or whatever, anything like that.
Sick. Woo! And yeah, Can I believe is playing that show. Shout out Can. They're like probably my favorite San Diego band ever right now.
I didn't even know. All I know was the touring band is Mystic 100s, I think, is the touring band. So I didn't even know any of the supporting. So hell yeah,
dude, listen to Can. They're like probably the sickest like San Diego band right now. They're so good.
I'm sure I probably know some people. Like all the kind of San Diego stuff, it's like either me or like everywhere I go. Like I said, my partner Alejandra's been here for a long time. She knows. Like I've never been to a spot where she doesn't like go back.
Like know people, like
involved with it. So I'm sure she knows those people. I might too.
Sick, dude. Well, we kind of have one more question here. It's kind of the biggest one of the show. Maddie, do you want me to take it?
Promise you go for it.
Okay.
Sounds like a good question.
All right, Phil, you ready for it?
I hope so, yeah.
All right. A rat is going to jump into your mouth. Do you want this rat to jump into your mouth head first or butt first, and why?
Okay, so here's the thing. If it's jumping into my mouth butt first, that means it's scared of something, and it's just accidentally jumping into my mouth ass first. So that means it will be just as scared when it gets into my mouth and hop right out.
Oh, that's
mouth head first. Then it knows probably what it's doing, and that's more of an extreme thing. And when it freaks out in my mouth, it will be biting around my tongue and shit. So I would say, without knowing other information, butt first seems safer.
Oh, that was logical.
That's just good facts and logic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That was just like logical and factual. Like
you can title this if you put this on YouTube, you can title it "Destroyed by My Facts and Logic."
Some people like to get extra info about the rat. Sometimes there's like a scenario, but this time you really just took it.
Exactly.
You just understood.
If you had a scenario, I would love to hear the info, but assuming that all I had was what you gave me, that's what I think.
Hell yeah.
Well, maybe next time.
Well, that's all we have for today. Thanks for tuning into TBD on KCSB FM 91.9 every Sunday, 4 p.m. and NetNet Radio every Wednesday at 7. This has been Phil Geraldi. Thanks out of San Diego. Thanks so much, Phil.
Thanks for listening.